Okay, welcome. We are Northside Democracy for America. We are live from the United Center, from the Irish American Heritage Center. I know where I am. And I'm Melissa Bloomberg. This is Ray Sanders.
Okay. We are, okay, I'm just going to start at the beginning.
Okay.
Welcome.
I'll do it.
No.
I'll do it. We're Northside Democracy for America, whose mission is to elect socially progressive, fiscally responsible, and ethically committed Democrats to all levels of government. We want to welcome everyone who has never been to a meeting before, either in the room or online. And please make sure NDFA has your email address. We can send you emails about all the wonderful things we do. So, that said, this is a very informal meeting. We are, it's our first time at the Irish Center. People will be getting up and going to get food and coming back. And this is our meeting after the elections, where we tell war stories. That is, we get up and tell stories about what happened at the election, what happened to us personally, and we take a great deal of gratitude for the people who won, and take a moment to recognize the people who lost in their hard-fought races. And do you have a list of our candidates who won in the?
No.
No, we don't have a list. So I'll do it off the top of my head, and I am sorry if I forget anyone. Brandon Johnson won. Yay! Angela Clay won. Yay! Meg Matthias did not win. Thank you, Meg, for running. Yeah. Because, you know, it's really hard to run, and it's really hard to run in a district that changes its boundaries in the middle of your race. And who else?
There's a whole list.
Lori Torres-Witt also ran a good race, and
Jessica Fuentes.
She won.
yeah, but she went outright.
Yeah, she did.
We already talked about
Okay,
her.
we're just talking.
We're just talking about people who went in the general, right? So Lori Torres-Witt was up and ran a good race, and also did not win, but we are also grateful to her for running, because it is in fact hard work to run. So we're going to start with asking a couple of people who won their races to come up and talk, and I'm going to call on the two people from the Police District Council, District 17, Anthony and Beth. Stand right here. I will get out of the way.
I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Temez. I live over on Pulaski and Brochero in the Irving Park neighborhood, and I am a member-elect for the 17th District Council. I'm also here with one of my other council members, Beth Rochford, and Steve, who is not here with us tonight. But this is one of my first meetings with NDFA, so I'm really excited to hear your guys' stories while out on the campaign trail. Also very grateful to you all for your endorsement for myself and for our slate. And I think it really got us over the finish line, and just really excited. A lot of the work that we're going to do as a district council has already started. So if you haven't heard already, there's already been listening sessions across the city to find our next police superintendent. So there was one on the west side, there's going to be one virtually, and then the next one is TBD, but they need to hold one on the north side, so that will be up in our area soon. So just really encourage you all to attend those as well, just to provide input on what you would want to see in the next police superintendent that's going to help run our city. And then I'll turn it over to Beth, who is going to be our nominating person for the district council. So Beth is going to be the one who helps decide who's going to sit on the interim commission, which is also very important as well, because they're going to be the people who ultimately pick the next police superintendent, or the next three candidates, that is.
Yeah, so hi, Beth Rochford, District Counselor-elect.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the process between now and the selection of the new police superintendent?
Yeah, so the police superintendent will be chosen by the mayor from a list of 3 candidates that the interim commission, which is the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. There are 7 people on that commission. They, like Anthony said, had their first listening session on Tuesday. Next week actually will be at St. Sabina, next Wednesday on the south side. On April the 25th, it will be virtual for anybody who wants to watch it and then give input on what qualities and characteristics they want in a police superintendent. And then the last one will be on May the 4th. Again, expected to be up here somewhere on the north side, so that every part of the city gets representation. But this is the first time that average people get to weigh in on what they would like to see in a police superintendent, and that's revolutionary, I think. And so the interim commission that is in place now will be responsible for nominating those 3 people, and then the mayor will choose from that list or reject the entire list, and the process would then start again. But we hope that doesn't take place.
And is that the new mayor or the old mayor?
It will be the new mayor because, yeah, so they have 120 days total in order to have the listening sessions, put out the application. So if anybody wants to know what the application looks like, it's online. The CCPSA website has the application, if anybody here wants to apply to be the next police superintendent. They put that application together, and then they will have called for people to apply. I think they have 30 days that application process will be open. Then they will start reading those applications, and then I think they have 60 days from when the application closes to when they're supposed to have the list of 3 that they submit to the mayor, and then the mayor has 30 days, I believe, to choose from that list. So that's the total 120 days until our next, maximum of 120 days until our next police superintendent is chosen.
And that brings us to probably about like mid-July.
Correct.
Is when we can possibly have the police superintendent.
And then the interim commission will serve until, I believe, the end of August. So the way the ordinance was written, because the ordinance passed in July of 2021, and that calls for the district councilors to nominate the commission, the district councils wouldn't even be in place, elected until this February, and then won't take office until May. So it was almost 2 years. So the ordinance was written so that it would have an interim commission. So the aldermen nominated 14 people, and the mayor chose 7. And that commission is in place and were appointed in September of last year. So they will serve for a year until the end of August. The district councils will be responsible for nominating the new commission. So from May 2nd, when our official inauguration takes place, we have 30 days to call for applications for people to serve on the full commission. Then we will have 60 days, again, for being able to interview those people, read those resumes, and then submit the 14 names to the mayor. That commission is required to have 2 representatives from the north side, 2 representatives from the west side, 2 from the south side, and then an at-large representative. 2 must be attorneys 2 must have 10 years of community service, could be community organizing, could be social work. And then 2 of the commissioners will be required to be between the ages of 18 and 24. So we will be required to have young people involved in this process. And then the commission is responsible, as we said, they will be nominating the superintendent, but they also can hire and fire the head of COPA, and they also are responsible for nominating the people who serve on the police board. So there are 3 vacancies on the police board right now. They have called for applications, got applications, interviewed people, and submitted 4 names to the mayor. So this will be Mayor Lightfoot will hopefully be the one to get this process rolling of putting 3 new people from the 4 names that were submitted onto the police board. So again, the commission is doing really good and important work and really trying to reach out to the community and get their input. If I understand this correctly, this is the first time that the police board will have potentially people other than attorneys. In the past, only attorneys were on the police board, and now they have opened that application process up to other people. So again, to represent more of the community. So we'll see, but it's very exciting, the work that's being done already and what we will be able to.
Was it a aldermanic initiative, or citizen?
No, it was a citizen initiative. So I'll give you a little bit of background of 2 different groups who have been working on this. So there's an organization called CARPER, the Chicago Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression, who have been working on this issue probably since the 70s. So they had been working on it. They had an ordinance called CPAC that they were trying to get passed, and we're just running into a lot of difficulties over the years. And then when the Laquan McDonald incident happened and then the tape was released, a lot of people in the city were up in arms, and so many organizations, community organizations, decided that this was something that they wanted to take on and they wanted to see some change. So I actually organized with one of these organizations, One Northside, and I was on the Police Accountability Task Force. We had just passed Ban the Box, and we were looking for an issue campaign, and this was sort of dropped on us, and we said yes, so we became the Police Accountability Task Force. So we joined with, I think, initially 11, and then it got whittled down to 7 organizations who became GAPA, the Grassroots Alliance on Police Accountability. So there were 2 competing ordinances, GAPA and CPAC. Neither one had enough aldermanic support in order to get the ordinance passed, and I think, though she would dispute this, I think Mayor Lightfoot tried to get this to go away by saying, why don't the 2 of you groups work together? And so we actually did come together. We wrote a better ordinance. We got it passed. We needed 34 votes. We got 36, so it was a super majority. So it couldn't be vetoed or what have you. And then we went straight to work on, once it was passed, how were we gonna educate the community, find leaders to run for these positions. People said nobody would run for them. There are 66 positions, 3 in each police district, and there are 22 police districts, and 122 people actually submitted petitions, and we elected 65. There was only 1 position that nobody ran for initially, and then nobody ran as a write-in candidate, but there is a process for getting that seat filled. So we will be 66 strong soon, and doing our work to involve the community in public safety.
Thank you.
And there were a fair number of write-in candidates who won too.
Yes, I think there were at least 4 write-in candidates who ran, and obviously 2 of those 4. There was a minimum requirement, and if I understand this correctly, you have to get the number of votes that you would have needed in petitions.
Yeah.
So Ashley Vargas in the 14th district needed 415 votes, and she got over 4,000. So
Wow.
yeah, so her community really came out to support her and get her enough votes to be elected. So
It's one of the few times you see a write-in campaign actually work in the state, so that's pretty exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all about people power, right? I mean,
Right.
that's what, you know, she was backed by a lot of different community groups, and they got out there for her and made sure people knew how to spell Ashley Vargas. And,
Spelled her name correctly.
yeah,
All
got her
really
elected,
important.
so,
Yep,
yeah,
Well,
great.
that was
Thank you.
brilliant.
yes,
Yes, it really was.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
One more question right here.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. So one of them, like, on the campaign trail. So you ran as I mean, I know your slate pretty well, but, you know, you were very diverse ideologically. How was that? What was it like running as a slate? What were the legal challenges specifically? And what was it like electorally? And then secondly, I think it'd be, what are your aspirations for this? Like, you know, in terms of the board, in terms of the superintendent, in terms of like the remit of this role, because it's potentially capacious, and that's why I'm glad that Brandon was elected, because I don't think it would have been as capacious had it not. So, and like, if you could, I know you could speak to that.
So we ran as a slate of 3 individuals who got their own petitions signed and then came together after that. There were some districts where people actually ran on one, they got a petition signed with 3 names, and there was some question as to whether that was legal, even though it has been done before in the water reclamation. And they were pretty heavily challenged by the FOP, and thankfully all the slates were allowed to stand, and all of them won. So that was great. And I think you guys, did you endorse some of the candidates in some of those slates?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So again, thank you for that. I think that we were able to come together to say we don't agree on every single issue, but I think that we have the same philosophy of wanting to involve the community, of wanting to see equity. We don't want people who look like me to be treated differently than people who look like Anthony. And so we were able to come together and say it's very important that we elect district councilors who want the public to be involved and respect the fact that people in our community, our district, look different. We're different ages, races, you know, everything, and yet we all deserve to be treated the same. And so I think that made it, and with respect, absolutely. Yeah, right.
We don't know what
Not everybody awful.
Not everybody
Yes.
also.
Right.
Everybody with respect. Lift everybody up.
Yes.
I think that our slate also, you know, speaks to like what public safety can be and what those conversations can look like. You know, often in the city of Chicago, you know, there's 2 sides to it. There's either, you know, back the blue or defund the police, and the conversation around public safety doesn't really go further than that. You know, you find out what side you're on, and then you're like, okay, I don't want to talk to anyone else. And so, you know, our conversation around public safety, in order to keep everyone safe, you know, we have to know our neighbors, we have to know the organizations that are in our community. And I think that our slate really speaks to that, because while we all have very different ideas on what safety means and how we feel safe in our community, we can come together and find a common ground to find something that works for everyone.
David has
Yeah,
a question.
do the vacant positions get filled by the outgoing or the incoming mayor?
So it will be the incoming mayor because there is one vacant position in the first police district. So the 2 district reps in that district will reach out to their community and they will nominate, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, but they will nominate people from their district, and that name will go to the mayor, and the mayor will select the person in that vacancy. But they have to be seated, so they will be seated May the 2nd. I guess there could be a situation where they would, be seated on May the 2nd and could potentially present names to the mayor on May the 3rd, but my guess is that they won't, and it'll take a little bit of time for them to actually reach out to the community and find out who's interested, and then it will go to Brandon after May the 15th.
Also noting, we are still going through our training as well from the city, so we have 2 more orientation dates scheduled for this Saturday and next Saturday. And one thing that we found out during our first orientation is that me and Beth being together right now is against the Open Meetings Act, but we're not in our positions yet, so it doesn't really matter.
It's being filmed. It's very open. Everybody is welcome to come. Everybody may come. Everybody may
Yes, well,
It's
So,
very open.
as soon as we are sworn in, obviously there's the Open Meetings Act was meant for larger bodies, but since we are an individual body, 2 of us technically make a quorum.
Yeah, so you may not see, outside of our regular meetings, monthly meetings, you may not see us together. This kind of a forum, I think, is just informational, so I think we'll be able to give information to people, but we couldn't vote on anything, or
have lunch.
right, or we couldn't solicit your opinion on what you would like to see in the district with the 2 of us together, unless we posted 48 hours in advance and we took minutes and we had an agenda and that sort of thing. So, but we're still learning all of this, and we have been told that if we don't like it, we can lobby our state representatives, so you may hear us come back and beg you to help us lobby our state reps and senators to say, please make an amendment to the Open Meetings Act, so the 2 of us are not being together is not considered a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
What have you thought of it? First of all, who's giving the training? How?
It's the people who are employed through the city with the Community Commission on Public Safety and Accountability, so CCPSA, if you want to Google them. Some of the training was by the General Counsel and the Assistant General Counsel. One of the presenters was Reverend Damon Smith, who is our Deputy Director for the District Councils. So he has done some of the speaking, and then their staff, have sort of put the things together that they're training us. So we're not sure what we're going to do for 9 hours, 2 Saturdays in a row, but
so far you've
yeah. So we only had 1 session. It was 3 hours, and again they dropped this bomb on us towards the end of the meeting about the Open Meetings Act, and we were like, "What? We can't after May the 2nd? We can't talk to each other?" But anyway, so yeah, it's all just a real learning process of what does it mean and how will things work.
So it's only in a quorum, if you have a quorum present? You can
Yes,
talk
we
about
yes,
it.
yes.
Just a sec, because we've certainly had plenty of state legislators come to our meetings
Right.
and talk to each other.
Yes,
We can be
yes,
we
but
can be
it's
together.
but
we
it's
just
not
can't
yes.
talk
Right,
17
yeah,
districts.
right, yes, yeah, so we can talk about gardening, but we cannot talk about, yes, but it's because the three of us are considered a public body, so whenever two of us are gathered together, it's considered a quorum.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
All right, if no one has any further questions, do you want to talk, because this is supposed to be war stories, do you want to talk at all about any fun thing that happened to you on the campaign trail that was unexpected or weird, or, you know, a moment that stands out as being life affirming, or one that makes you go,
Yeah,
oh my
so
goodness,
I'll,
this happened?
Yeah, so I will, I believe her name is Jean, and I know where she lives because she lives about 2 houses down from my uncle. But she, and I need to follow up with her, so she's getting her PhD in restorative justice and wants to be a part of the 17th District Council. And I think one of our first acts is we need to bring the alders in the 17th District. So there are 7 of them and there are 3 of us. And I think we need to have a peace circle with the 10 of us. So anyway, so I'm going to be reaching out to her very soon because she said that she supported the 3 of us and she wanted to be part of this. So
Cool.
yeah, so I didn't know you could get a PhD in restorative justice, and now I know.
What university offers that? Just out of
You know, I
curiosity?
did not ask her that question, but she lives in the 17th district, so I don't know. My guess would either be UIC or University of Chicago, maybe DePaul. Yeah, that would be the 3 on the top of my list.
I think for myself, this, like my community was really activated. You know, I do a lot of work in the Native community, and the bulk of my work is with Native youth in the city of Chicago and across the country. And I think just like my campaign activated a lot of Native community members who are often like left out of the political process, or you know, or are an afterthought. And so just seeing like a lot of Native youth and a lot of Native community members come in and get involved was like really inspiring and hopeful to me. And you know, I right now, well, when we're sworn in, I'll be the only sitting Native American elected in the state of Illinois, and I'll be one of the youngest ones nationally. And so, you know, we made some history right now, and you know, for me, it was just really like a go-getter to try to get more Native people elected to office. You know, in a state that doesn't really have any federally recognized tribes as well.
Yeah, that's great. I know that from, I was part of the outpost in Uptown, and in the grants that they would write, it was an outpost of Columbia College, and the grants that they would write would say the largest urban population of Native Americans is right here in Uptown.
Yep.
So I'm like, really? With that kind of build-up, it's been, you know, 20 years
Yeah.
since then, and, you know, you're the first in Illinois. That's incredible, and good luck.
Yeah.
And hopefully not the last, right?
And hopefully not the last.
Definitely not.
Let it be empowering.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank you.
now we're gonna open up the floor to anybody who would like to tell a campaign story. Joe, come up to the front, Joe, because we have a camera.
It looks like
Yeah, so.
All right. So actually, before I get into my story, since we just talked about the police councils, we need to give a shout out to Becky
Oh, Becky.
Leffen,
Yes.
who's not here tonight for NDFA steering, but she was the catalyst for putting together the online forums that we did for all the North Side candidates for the police forum. Also, a shout out to Daniel and Kit and Hardlands Media, who not only streamed those 2 nights live, but they then were able to get them onto Chicago Cable Access Network throughout the month of January so that other voters could access them. And in a lot of ways, for all the good that NDFA did, that's sort of at the top of the list. So Becky's at a fundraiser, I think, tonight right now.
Yeah.
So thank you, Becky.
Yay, Becky.
All right.
good story.
Oh, no, we need to talk about J. Mall Green's bus, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Now, for those of you that may not know, J. Mall Green had like a rock star tour bus through the entire campaign. If he was known for anything before the primary, it was that and what happened the day before the primary. So the day before the primary, I am canvassing at Truman College. It's the last evening of early voting. A lot of action going on at Truman College that day. A lot of TV networks were there. Jim Kappelman decided to endorse Lori Lightfoot that day. Okay.
That's a little late.
Yeah, a little late. So it's about 5:30, 5:45, and we hear, because one of his campaign people came out to us, that J. Mall is speaking at Truman and trying, shaking hands. And again, it's the end of the day, a lot of people going back and forth. And as we're talking, we see his bus start to pull up. Now again, if you've never been to Truman College, you have to understand there are two huge buildings on Wilson Avenue, right? There's a 2-lane road in between the two that gets you to either the parking garage or a cul-de-sac where you can pick up, drop off, or otherwise leave. Now, as we're talking, we see the bus start to pull up, and immediately a lot of us are going, well, that's interesting. Because the bus kind of keeps going and then it stops. So now we're going, how are we going to get that out of there? Because there's no way in hell it's going to be able to get to the parking lot. None at all. So the only hope is to get it through the cul-de-sac. Well, the cul-de-sac is probably wide enough for a school bus, arguably not wide enough for a rock and roll style touring bus. And that's assuming that it's not 6 o'clock in the evening, where you also have a row of cars parked on the outside edge of said cul-de-sac, which leaves very little room if somebody was unwise enough to try to drive a rock and roll sized bus around to get out. Well, even though it's like 10 minutes and there are voters coming in and out, we start to see the bus pull around, and we're all going, he's not going to make it. And he gets as far as about halfway around where he thinks he can drive around, and all 8 rear wheels are now firmly ensconced in the circle in the middle of the cul-de-sac, completely blocking the cul-de-sac behind the bus and completely jamming the bus in that spot. Door opens, first bus driver comes out. The campaign manager, we assume, talks to him. We don't know what about. He leaves, comes back. A second guy comes. Apparently this is the relief driver. We're still going, no, this ain't gonna work, man. This ain't gonna work, man. He goes in, we're still chatting, and as we're chatting, we start to smell rubber burning. So not only is he not moving, he's getting further down, burying the back wheels to the axles. And I have a picture, which I'm happy to show you guys. And finally, the relief driver comes out. At that point, J-Mal kind of comes bouncing out and trying to sort of blow it off, and we're kind of going, well, you can't rock that thing in and out in order to get it out like you could a regular car. We all just kind of went shrugged. I left, we all left. Now, Becky happens to live down the block. She went out at 10 that night. The bus was still there, still buried into the axle. And to conclude the story, I'm not really on Twitter anymore, but I understand J-Mall was getting a lot of grief because apparently he endorsed Vallis and was sort of unrepentant about it. And, I looked at it from a very different perspective. Like, we realized the only way he was going to get that bus out was to get a tow. Tow trucks that get rock and roll sized buses out aren't cheap, are not easy to find, especially at 10 at night.
Yep.
we know how deals are often cut. I'm giving Jamal a break because Jamal got his bus buried in the axle, and if that wasn't a symbol of Jamal Green's entire mayoral campaign, I can't think of another one. Thank you all. I'm here all week.
All right, Ray, you did a lot of time. Do you have some story? No stories?
No stories.
So, I have nowhere near as interesting a story. I just have a little affirmation. It's, you know, I haven't been out on the doors, since the pandemic, and didn't go out on the doors this time. But I did go and hand out flyers in the polling place on election day for Meg Matthias. And I got sent to Independence Park, and it's cold. If you remember election day, it was cold, it was rainy. By the time I got there at the end of the day, it was sort of drizzling. And I'm standing out there, and all of my joints are hurting, and my ankle is hurting, my knees are hurting, and I'm like, why? And I sort of walked to the other side. Independence Park has multiple entrances, and I walked away from the Dallas Gardner people to the other side, and I thought, why am I out here? This is why we always send two people, because I'm out here all by myself, and it's cold, and it's miserable, and it's dark. So here I am, standing there. And I'm there for like, 45 minutes, and going around in circles. And I handed out my little flyer to two people who took it and who looked, oh, I didn't know we were voting for alderman. And another one was like, oh, okay, let me, and so I actually had a nice conversation with that guy. And it turns out there were two precincts voting there. One was voting for alderman, one was in 45 and one was in 39. So one was voting for alderman, one did not, but I didn't know that. So eventually, this guy from the other side comes over and starts to talk to me. And he's a retired firefighter, so you know who he's handing out flyers for. And we have this long conversation. He's very friendly, but also just like, oh, I'm never getting through to you about why people like Brandon. Like he said, why do people like Brandon? I don't get it. Paul Vallis should be running away with this. And I think he's going to win, but oh my God, Brandon's so close. And I didn't say, yeah, dude, Brandon's going to win. Close. I did say, And then he asked me why people like Brandon, and I started to talk about things, and then he went, but he's a socialist. And I'm like, I don't know. But then this other woman came, and she was there to canvass for Brandon. And she walked up right as that, and I was trying to give her Meg, and she's like, no, I am not your audience. I'm not your audience. And finally we figured out that she was there for Brandon's campaign. And she was this woman who worked at the Lyric Opera, and she knew exactly why she was there for Brandon. She was like, I am there for Brandon because he has a page about the arts, and the arts are really important to this city, and it is really important that we get somebody who understands that the arts have been hurt by the pandemic, and that it is so important that we bring them back. There is no art in the city that has not been devastated by this pandemic, and we need a plan because the art drives everything. And by this time, my firefighter was a little ADHD, and because he told me that, I'm not diagnosing him. And he's like, oh, my friend's leaving, and so he goes off. And then I talk to her for a while, and then he comes back, and we talk. And then she's like, I think I'm going to go over there where the Vallis people are because I need to be handing out signs over there. And so then I'm left by myself, and then I'm like, all right, I guess if she's over there by the Vallis people, I can be over there by the scary Vallis people. And it turns out that the Vallis people that I interacted with, the ones who replaced the firefighter, were not that scary because they weren't that committed. They were sort of being paid, I think. They were kind of friendly, kind of nice, not that committed. The one really liked Meg because his wife liked her because she tipped well. Meg tips well. His wife was a waitress. And then another Brandon woman came, and the first one goes off to do her own precinct. And then I'm talking to her. We had a great time. We had a great time talking. I don't think we converted anybody because by that time, everyone was like, I am coming from work and I am going in and I am not talking to any of you stupid people with flyers. But we had a great time staying around talking. And then we went in to get our tape, and of course, we were getting it from the person who was the least efficient person who was in the whole place, who was on the one pieces of equipment that we cared about. And I still don't think we got the right tape. We got a tape eventually. But. So anyway, the point of this story is, it was very affirming to go out and have conversations with people and meet new people that I didn't know. And even though it was cold and dark and rainy, and I was out there, the only NDFA on my own, which was kind of scary, but it was, in fact, a pretty great experience, and sort of a experience about how great democracy actually is. You know, when you get to sit and talk, stand on concrete and talk to people for hours. So that's my story. Does anybody else have a story? Steve has a story.
Actually, let's give it, what do you want?
We need to play
Right
it.
there.
Actually, these are two stories, and they're more about age than anything else. So comes February 28th, and I am at Melissa Pawani's headquarters in the 50th Ward. And what we are doing is we're trying to call everybody in the ward, because we know the only way we're going to win is we get people to turn out, which in the end we did. So it's maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and a woman walks in. Very good looking woman, and clearly Muslim, and she's got her 4-year-old daughter with her. And this kid is, as all 4-year-olds, is a cute kid, and you take one look at the kid, you take a look at the mother, and you say, someday this kid is going to be a stunning beauty. Okay, so they walk in, and they go to the campaign manager, who's a woman of about 30, and the woman says to her, I have a few hours to help. What would you like me to do? And the campaign manager says, okay, in a minute, I'm going to give you a list of people to call. Before I do that, take a seat over there, take out your smartphone, and call everybody you know in the ward and try to get them to vote. And the woman understands this and is saying, yes. And the kid chimes in, yes, yes. So I say to the kid, wait a minute, your contacts aren't old enough to vote yet. And she looks at me, and she says, I know that. You have to be 18 to vote. So this kid is not only cute, he's also very bright. And the campaign manager says to her, when you're 18, are you going to run for public office? I'd vote for you. And I'm about to add my own endorsement to this. And then I realized that even if what she meant was not when you're an adult, but when you're 18, it was kind of unlikely that I would be in a position to vote for this thing. That's story number 1. Story number 2, okay, it's the same day, and it's now after 6 o'clock. And we know we've lost. Our people did not turn out. But if you're a campaign manager, the last thing you have to do is to get the tapes. So I get chosen, there's a synagogue at the other end of the ward, I get chosen to go there and get the tapes. And my main qualification is I was the only person in the office who would actually pronounce the name of that synagogue. So, all right, I go there, and it's now, I don't know, 6:45, and I hand in my credentials, and that goes fine, but it's clear I'm the first poll watcher to show up there all day. Now, this is not too surprising, because we had no hopes at all of those precincts, and all the election staff, of course, is appointed by the ward committee person, who happens to be our opponent. She has no need to have any poll watchers there. So I handed it. So there are 2 precincts there, A and B. Precinct A, there's still a lot of people waiting to vote. And I was later told that 400 people had voted in that precinct. So I figured, okay, they're busy, you leave busy people alone. Precinct B, nobody's there. Turns out that all day, maybe 40 people had voted. Grand total. And so they're all standing around with nothing to do. So I start schmoozing with them because, frankly, yeah, if you're a poll watcher, they've got to give you the tape, but they can make you wait all night to get it. So I figured, make some friends. And there's this guy about my own age, and he seems to be, you know, enjoying himself and whatever. And I start talking to him, and then I realize he's got a badge on his shirt. And the badge says in big letters, Republican Judge. And I say to him, wait, you're too old to be a Republican judge. Because, as everybody knows, judges are appointed by the Democratic committee woman, and therefore you start out as a Republican judge, and then you graduate becoming a Democratic judge. And he says to me, you know, you'd be absolutely right, but I'm a transplant from Wisconsin, I got a late start. So that was why he was still only a Republican judge. Those are my stories.
All right. Does anyone else have a story they would like to share on film? Yes, come up.
Very brief.
Stand right here.
I was doing research, as were some other people, Angela Clay campaign, and I just want to share with you how it went with the bureaucracy. So the first place I went was the Board of Ethics, and in the city of Chicago, and that's on North Sedgwick. It's not a city hall. So I had been there 10 years ago, and I went there, and it was perfectly normal, and they would pull files for you. But they freaked out that I came in person. Like, why are you here? Who are you working for? Are you a citizen? Are you just interested in that? But they eventually, I said I wanted more information than I could find online, and they insisted they didn't have any, and I believed them, and then they gave me a card and said you can call. But that's not a great reaction. But the worst one was the clerk of the city of Chicago, Anna Valencia. Now, she's in charge of aldermanic records, meetings, minutes, council stuff, and they don't answer the phone. I must have started calling in February, every couple of days. They have a line. They close at 4, and they don't answer the phone. Eventually, so I moved on. And eventually I called my alderman, Brian Hopkins, and he said, yeah, they don't answer our calls either. And then he was going to help me, but he got busy with adopting a kid, and then I kind of never heard from him. So, I mean, that is, in this day and age, it's the same thing as 20 years ago where I don't know if they have the records. So I wanted minutes from a finance committee in 1997. No, 2017, excuse me. And couldn't get them. Don't know if they have them. And I couldn't spend that much time on them. And then lastly, Springfield was a little bit more organized, a little bit better. But I think somebody promised me the clerk of the house was going to call me back. I called a couple of times, never did. But the clerk of the city of Chicago, I think it's really bad, and we maybe should consider getting a little bit more involved in political reform, sort of as an issue when we interview these candidates. But also, that position apparently needs to be separated from the clerk because she's too busy collecting fees on people. So that's it. That's the war story. Thank you.
What information were you trying to get?
From which one?
The clerk, Anna Valencia.
Oh, minutes from a finance committee meeting in 2017.
Oh, okay, that's
That is
really
her job.
straightforward.
It's really straightforward.
It's what?
It's
It's really
straightforward.
straightforward.
Nobody ran against Anna Valencia.
Well,
in the last
it
election.
wasn't posted, so I didn't know if they had the records. And at a certain point in Chicago history, there were no minutes. I don't know if there were minutes now. Do you know if there were minutes now? Okay. So it's typical of local government not to keep minutes of committees across the country.
Huh.
So
Okay.
No one ran against Valencia in the last election.
Unopposed is
So, do we have anybody else who
I know
would
it's
like
pathetic.
to speak, tell a story? Yes, please, come up.
So this election was a little strange from the beginning for me. I happened to be a precinct captain in a ward whose alderman endorsed Paul Vallis, and I was very strongly interested and supportive of Brandon Johnson. The alderman, Tom Tunney, knew that I was, with Brandon Johnson from early on, and so anyway, we got, obviously it was wonderful when he made the runoff, but I began to think pretty positively because in our particular ward, 44, Brandon took a third of the precincts in round one. So I knew at that point he had a really good chance of winning the ward. Most of the time when I'm volunteering, it's the night before an election, I find myself going to bed way too late, because I got to get up super early, meet these judges at 5 to open, the polling place. And this runoff election, I had no trouble going to bed right at like 10 o'clock. I was feeling pretty good about, Brandon's chances. But, one of the things we do in 44 is we try to take good care of the people that volunteer to serve, or not volunteer, they're paid, but who do sacrifice their time to serve as election judges. So, we don't want them going out to get lunch or anything, so we'll bring them, something to eat. And among those items is in the morning, we try to get coffee, and Alderman Tunney owns and operates Ann Sather Restaurant, so naturally that's where we are equipped with some coffee that he donates and some of his famous, cinnamon buns and all that. So when I went to the restaurant, there was the alderman, and I asked him, how he was doing and all that, and he remarked to me that he had been up really, really late the night before. And I kind of took that as a really good sign for Brandon. And he did hug me, which personally was a very good sign for me too, that all was sort of forgiven, I hope. Anyway, so that was really, really a good way to begin the day. And later that morning, I interacted with Brandon Schiller, former Alderman Helen Schiller's son, and he was really optimistic too. And he was like, if you count what they're going to get in the southwest side, what they're going to get in the northwest side, I think we're going to counteract that with what we're going to get on the north side and what we're going to see at the south and west sides. So he was optimistic as well, and that bared out. So I was really very, very happy with that. And then after the election, well, I got some not so great things from one friend who was a really big Paul Vallis supporter. So, but most of the Vallis people that I know were really nice about it, and that was good. I even met up with some people that were very Republican people, and you've heard about this "Let's Go Brandon" thing about Joe Biden. Well, they were joining me and saying, "Let's go, Brandon," last Friday night. So that was really fun to be able to do that too. So those are my stories.
Okay. Yeah, so the other thing that happened on Tuesday, April 4th, which we, didn't even mention, was that Trump was arraigned in New York City on that day. A day many of us had wondered whether that was ever going to happen. And so, as I'm driving from place to place, I'm listening to NPR being breathless about, oh, no, the motorcade. And I'm like, I don't care about Trump's motorcade. Ever again. Don't care. Don't care if he gets stuck in the Holland Tunnel. Do not care. But it was great to have got you to
And
say
we
about
have the
it.
Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Oh, and the Wisconsin! Yay! On Wisconsin! Yay! So, so Tuesday, April 4th was actually one of the best days we've had in a really long time. Really long time. So it was sort of like, now we're having some wins. And that felt really good. So, once again, I want to open the floor to anyone else who has a story or comment or something, observation that they want to make from
I
Beth.
don't necessarily want to make an observation, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
The next thing on a number of our radars is the Chicago Elected School Board.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys think that you will do any work in that area?
I am sure we will. I am sure that once people have decided that they are going to run, we will be figuring out how to do a forum with candidates for that, because that is going to be really important. At this point, they don't even have a district map drawn, so it's really hard to figure out who's going to run where. But I do know a number of people that I personally know are gearing up to run for that, wherever their district ends up. So it is going to be really important, and we are going to be, we will be involved. The other races that are coming up are honestly not too far away. A year away is our 2024 primary is less than a year from now. So we will start hearing from everybody who's running in 2024, which includes committeemen and includes state central committeemen, I think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And will include congressional candidates.
Melissa, I should probably take that opportunity to introduce myself.
Liam.
Liam Kelly. I haven't always been no, it's okay. You'll have to talk your ears off in the future. I haven't always been the most active member of NDFA, but I've been to several meetings before. I am going to be a candidate for the county circuit court in 1 year from now. So I look forward to talking to all of you individually. I think you'll like my politics. I'm also very excited about the Illinois Supreme Court race. I will be personally supporting Jesse Reyes, and I encourage you guys to take a look at Jesse. He's great.
We are not as good. A long time ago, we made a decision that we're not doing judge races and endorsement-wise, although we welcome judges who wish to come and talk to us individually. There are so many judges. We were overwhelmed. So we have a lot coming up in the next year, a lot of important races, a lot of important things happening. We are planning to do a candidate training here at the Irish Center at the end of August of next year. This year, 2023, August 2023. We're doing candidate training. The 26th and 27th. We are still putting that together. It's not formally together yet, but we are doing it. And so start thinking about people you know who are candidates, who would either like to learn how to be a candidate, a better candidate than they were the first time around, or learn how to be a candidate because they've never done it, or people who want to be campaign managers, or people who just want to be better volunteers and know what they're doing when they go out to work on campaigns. So, look forward to that.
And people who want to teach. who I'm sure we're gonna be looking for more people to teach a section of the.
Oh, we have that covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We've got it, right?
Okay, good.
The training committee is on top of who we're gonna get. So, that is, and I think that's it. Do we have anything else we need to bring up? Mayor Claire, our chair?
Not right now.
Okay. I want to recognize, because we didn't do it at the beginning, because I wouldn't let Ray talk. But I want to recognize all the NDFA people, steering committee, who are here tonight. Joe is a steering committee. Mayor Claire is our fearless leader. Ray, me, Robert Murphy, and Mayor Saturkis is out on the table in the hall. And finally, if you can help us by donating, we would be really appreciative. You can go online to our webpage and donate there. You can donate in the tip jar if you happen to be here. So I think I'm going to end the formal part of our meeting, and then we can sit around and chat and have a nice time. Okay? Thank you.